Hey, what's going on, guys? What's happening? YouTube, you guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. In today's video, we're going to be covering a story from Yahoo News, Yahoo Entertainment. I don't know if any of you guys are fans of the band The Offspring. These days I kind of mainly listen to like jam bands and country. But back in middle school, I used to be big into alternative music, and I think I used to have a couple Offspring CDs. The drummer from The Offspring has been booted from the band for not getting vaccinated. One of the big concerns with kind of all the divisiveness about vaccines and vaccine mandates right now is that we're going to wind up creating a two-tiered society. We're basically going to have segregation. We're going to have kind of a lower class of people who aren't allowed to participate in society. And what's kind of interesting about this, he actually has a legitimate reason for not getting vaccinated. He has Guillain-Barre syndrome. I know my girlfriend's mom has Guillain-Barre syndrome. It's I guess it's like neuropathy. It's your immune system attacks itself. It's an inflammatory disease. And I guess it's really, really painful. Basically, something with like the connections or the nerves between different parts of your body and your brain send pain signals. And it's supposed to be really painful. It's really miserable. The CDC has acknowledged that Guillain-Barre syndrome is actually a rare but a potential side effect of the COVID-19 vaccines, or at least a couple of them. And apparently this drummer from The Offspring already suffers from Guillain-Barre syndrome, so he's concerned if he winds up getting the shot that it could wind up exacerbating the syndrome. Now, a logical, sane society would say, we shouldn't have this blanket, everybody should do this, everybody should do this, everybody should do this mentality, but we should have people talk with their own doctors, their own medical care professionals, and kind of look at their medical history and decide what's right for them. But nonetheless, despite allegedly having a legitimate reason for not getting the vaccine, he's been booted from the band. So let's take a look at this article. Let's see. Pete Parata, the drummer for The Offspring, has found out the hard way that some businesses and even bands are drawing a hard line on requiring vaccinations to come back to work. He posted on his social media Tuesday that he's been ousted from the group because he won't agree to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Beyond being replaced on an upcoming tour, Parata says he's been told not to show up at the studio either, even though he claims to have a legitimate medical reason for not getting the jab. It's not entirely clear from Parata's post whether he has been fired from the group permanently or just put on a hiatus, but comments about working on non-banned products and finding a new way forward suggests he doesn't foresee coming back into the fold. And what's a little bit different about this, it's one thing if you work for Walmart and they wind up firing you for not getting the vaccine. It's another, a band is a lot different than working for a corporation or working for an entity. A band is typically a group of friends, a group of guys who have a relationship. So this isn't just your employer kicking you to the curb. This is your friends turning their backs on you, which is kind of shameful. Since I am unable to comply with what is increasingly becoming an industry mandate, it has recently been decided that I am unsafe to be around in the studio and on tour, Parata wrote in a multi-part Instagram post. I mention this because you won't be seeing me at these upcoming shows. I also want to share my story so anybody else that's experiencing the agony and isolation of getting left behind right now knows they're not entirely alone. Parata says his posts that he previously had a case of COVID and thus believes he has the antibodies, but in any case he contends his lifelong history with Guillain-Barre syndrome puts him at greater risk for side effects from the vaccination, before adding that he is supportive of anybody who resists getting the vaccine for any number of reasons, from fear of side effects to distrust of the medical and governmental establishment. And with New York City implementing a vaccine mandate to go to the gym, to go to bars, to go to restaurants, they have created a two-tiered society. Something like 60% of African Americans aren't vaccinated. So we're basically locking 60% of African Americans out of society. But yeah, this is all pretty crazy. The drummer pictured above, second from the right, added that he is not posting out of anger at his bandmates' policy, although he does write with some chagrin about the climate of coercion surrounding the vaccine. I have no negative feelings towards my band, he wrote. They're doing what they believe is best for them, while I'm doing the same, wishing the entire Offspring family all the best as they get back at it. I'm heartbroken not to be seeing my road community, and I will miss connecting with the fans more than I can express in words. Requests for comment from the band were not immediately returned, as some fans have noted The Offspring's frontman Dexter Holland is not likely to be without some strong opinions on the spread of COVID. He received his PhD in molecular biology from USC 4 years ago. And it is kind of crazy that, I know this is kind of a controversial subject, but we're kind of coming with this attitude that everybody has to get vaccinated, even if you've had the COVID-19 or had the illness. That's like having somebody who, I know it's a little bit different because you can get reinfected with COVID, but I mean, it's kind of like somebody who had the chicken pox being forced to get the chicken pox vaccine. Once you have the chicken pox, you have immunity to the chicken pox for life. It can come back later on in life as shingles if you're stressed out, if your immune system is beaten down. But there's actually some studies out of Israel that are showing that natural COVID antibodies are anywhere between 7 and 40 times more effective at fighting off COVID than the antibodies received from the vaccine. And while we don't really have any idea how long natural antibodies are going to last, we don't really know how long antibodies from the vaccine are going to last either. I know there's a lot of different coronaviruses out there, and some of the other coronaviruses, like those of the common flu and SARS, people reportedly have antibodies up to 17 years later, if not even for life. So this idea that natural antibodies, aren't sufficient is kind of an unfair idea, in my opinion. The drummer's introductory remarks on Instagram, he wrote, "I got some unfortunate and difficult news to share. I know many of my close friends and family would have preferred to hear this privately first, and I apologize for the public nature of my disclosure, but I don't know how to have this conversation multiple times. Given my personal medical history and the side effect profile of these jabs, my doctor has advised me not to get the shot at this time. I caught the virus over a year ago. It was mild for me, so I am confident I'd be able to handle it again, but I'm not so certain I'd survive another post-vaccine round of Guillain-Barre syndrome, which dates back to my childhood and has evolved to be progressively worse over my lifetime. Unfortunately for me and my family, who is hoping to be around me a bit longer, the risks far outweigh the benefits. As a society, however, we've decided that we're going to make a decision for you as far as what your risk assessment is going to be, or you're not going to be able to participate in society, which again, I think is a little bit unfair." Parata gets more philosophical about his resistance to mandating vaccinations as the post goes on, saying he also supports those who are anti-vax because of an understandable distrust in the system, noting that half the population is having a shockingly different reaction to these jabs than was expected. And it's kind of interesting. I know everybody says the vaccines are safe. I'm sure they're overwhelmingly safe. I know most of these side effects are very rare, but just today it was announced that in Israel, they recently found out that a percentage of people who wind up getting the vaccinations wind up having some type of a disease or side effect that's like an inflammation of the eyes. And the idea that somebody's going to tell you something safe when, every day, every week, we're learning something more, we're learning about another side effect. If we knew everything about these vaccines, how come new things are popping up that we didn't know about? And how can you say something is safe if we continue learning more and more, week by week and month by month? He writes, "Well, my reason for not getting the jab is medical. I want to make sure I'm not carving out a space that is only big enough for me. I need to state unequivocally that I support informed consent, which necessitates choice, unburdened by coercion. I did not find it ethical or wise to allow those with the most power, government, corporations, organizations, employers, and in his case, bans, to dictate medical procedures to those with the least power. There are countless folks like me for whom these shots carry a greater risk than the virus. Most of us don't publicly share a private discussion we made in careful consideration with our doctors. We know it's not an easy conversation to unfold. If it looks like half the population is having a shockingly different reaction to these jabs than was expected, it's probably because their life experiences have actually been shockingly different, and their reasons range from conscious risk-benefit analysis to the financial inability to take time off work or lack of health care in the event of potential side effects, to an understandable distrust in the system that has never prioritized the health or wellness of their communities." And it is kind of interesting, right? Like, the government cares about us all now. They want to save all our lives. Why do EpiPens cost $500? Why do we not provide people with insulin? We apparently care about people when they're affected by communicable diseases, or selectively, but we really don't care about people all the time. So this idea that the government cares about me and they want to help me out, it's kind of hard to buy into. Urging more dialogue between pro and anti-vaxxers, the drummer says, "I hope we can learn to make room for all the perspectives and fears that are happening currently. Let's avoid the unfortunate tendency to dominate, dehumanize, and shout down each other. The hesitant population is not a monolithic group. All voices deserve to be heard. In the meantime, he adds, in conclusion, I'm in the midst of launching a project and releasing some music with my daughter, so please stay tuned for all of that. I deeply appreciate your understanding and support as my family and I find a new way forward. Sending love to everyone who has been impacted by this pandemic in all the ways lives have been lost and altered. Bassist Greg K left the group in 2019, so if Parata's exit is indeed a permanent one, that leaves half the band splitting in a period of 3 years. With 12 years tenure, Parata was the group's second longest running drummer in the group's 37-year career, having replaced Adam Willard in 2009. Holland and guitarist Kevin Noodles Wasserman remain from the original lineup founded in 1984. The Offspring social media accounts have been quiet in recent days, with no mention of Parata leaving. The drummer was seen in a live studio video put on the web on July 16th, but tellingly, apparently an Instagram post from 5 days ago pictured only the two founding members of the group. Their next gig is set for August 8th at LA's SoFi Stadium as part of a radio festival with major touring running from the beginning of September through early December. I know Yahoo had gotten rid of reactions or comments for a while. And they've just recently come back, though they still keep them off on kind of controversial topics. These are always slow to load. Let's see if we can get this to load here. Okay, so those comments don't want to load, so we will wrap it up here. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this story. Drop a comment below. If you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button below and ring the bell. Thanks for watching as always, and we'll catch you on the next video.